Howdy folks, it's Adriel the Hunting Gear Guy, and this is the Aimpoint Patrol Rifle Optic, or Pro, Aimpoint Pro. Now, while it's called the Aimpoint Pro, it's actually one of the cheapest red dots. So Aimpoint's got like the comp M4s, they've got the T1s. This is a bit more of an inexpensive one. These used to go in Canada for right around $475. These days they're right around $600, $650. But if you get them used, you could get them for $400, $500 kind of a thing. So I would describe this red dot in the grand scheme of red dots as a high durability, high reliability red dot that also has a very long life battery. The batteries in these things will actually last about 3 years, always on. So there's no fancy electronics in here like telling it when to wake up or when not to wake up if it gets shaken or something like that. It's just on all the time, which is kind of beautiful in its simplicity. So why don't we take a closer look at this red dot? I'm going to take this thing off this rail, but first I just want to show you a couple of things that might be different on my Aimpoint versus the one that you might get. One, this is an older one, so it's got this rubber kind of bikini holding the scope caps and battery caps on. The other one has like the scope caps retained by their own bikinis, and I think the battery cap isn't retained at all on the new ones. So that's different. The other difference you might notice is that I have my scope caps set up to flip down, and that's because I shoot a lot of 3-gun, and if they're flipped up and I put it through a barricade or something like that, the scope caps are going to get ripped off. So having them down like this makes it so that I am less likely to rip them off. So that's why I got them face down. Now, one thing that I want to show you guys that I actually really like about this optic is the takedown method on the quick release mount. It's got this big old knob on the side here, a little bit big. Like, it kind of gets in the way sometimes, but I really like the simplicity. If I need to take it off, I just grab it and I take it off. It's nothing really too complicated about that. Now, if I need to reinstall it, all I'm going to do, I like to mount mine basically as far forward on the receiver as possible without getting onto the forend or handguard. Let's get that guy right. Nope, next one. Yeah, right there. And all you do is twist this knob on. I'm going the right way. Yes, I'm going the right way. Let me see if I can get this in shot. Until you start, see that ramp there? That clicks over, 2, 3. It's kind of like a stepper clutch. I think it's a stepper clutch on a motorbike or something like that. And what that does is just ensure it's torqued down to the same setting every time, so that the optic's not going to move, and we're not having to like overpower these things. We're just torquing it to really what it needs to hang on to the rail. So that's kind of interesting. I just wanted to show you guys that before I got too far and pulled this thing right off my upper. Now I'll start with how you adjust the intensity of the dot. That all happens with this adjustment up here. I'm just going to put it close to the mic so you can hear it click. You can hear it's got a very positive clicking action to it, so you definitely know when you're all the way. There's 9 brightness settings. There's about 4 for really dim use for night vision and that kind of thing, and then 5 for regular. Just a second. Okay, I can see that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and then 4 for non-ish. So there's nine settings total. I think I got to 8 there, but 9 settings total. A couple of them that I'm never going to use because I'm not going to be shooting this thing with night vision. I just use it for 3-gun. I personally like to run it on setting 8 or 7. So at setting 9, it's quite bright. That doesn't show up very well on camera, but it's very bright. And I would say that it is unusably bright. And the reason why it's unusably bright is that it's so bloomed out that you can't really see the target that well, and you can't really see where the dot is on the target. Dialing it down by 1 makes a huge difference in how much bloom there is. And I could shoot on 8 all day long. 7 is just a little bit dimmer, and now it's starting to look like, I mean, it is a 2 MOA dot, but at 7, you're actually not getting that bloom around it where it's kind of occluding the target. So if I need to make long range shots, or if it's not super duper bright, I run it on 7. If it's super duper bright, I run it on 8. And those are the only 2 settings I use on this thing. Now, the nice thing about the battery life on this thing is that leaving it on 7, it'll last for 3 years, just always on, never turning off. Again, no automation or weirdness in the electronics, just always on, just a very power efficient dot on these things, and a decent battery to back it up. So that's kind of interesting. And it was one of the reasons why I really liked the idea of getting one of these things, because for 3-gun it's super duper simple, right? Just pick it up and go shoot. Don't even turn it off. Just leave it on the whole time. Leave it on at home. Leave it on all the time. And after 2 years, if you want to be generous, after 2 years, change your battery out. If you want to be really super duper cautious, change your battery out once a year, kind of a thing, right? I have a spare battery, because the batteries that these things use are kind of weird. They're like a fat little what are they, DL1 or a 3N battery. You're not going to find it at Walmart or anything like that. You're going to need to get one of these things, or buy a couple at a time on Amazon or something like that. And they last quite a bit. They kind of look like that. They're kind of like this weird fat coin cell. So again, I would just recommend leaving it on setting 7, and leave it. It should last like 3.5 years, kind of a thing. So change it 2 years, and away you go. So I would not get like a million batteries for this thing, because shelf life on these batteries, I think like what is it, like 10 years or something like that. So you might as well just get a couple at a time and just chuck them in there. Scope caps, same idea. They're held in with this rubber keeper here. And pulling those off, you can see that they adjust, like they're a coin slot, or I found 9mm brass works really well for this, and then there's always 9mm brass at the range, so I've always got one of those to click it over. Now, one of the things that's interesting in the way that they've done these scope caps, this front one's black, the rear one's clear, is that if you really wanted to, you could shoot this thing with both the scope caps closed. And the reason why you can do that is you would keep both eyes open, you would see the red dot, and you would put the red dot on your target with your other eye, which is kind of an interesting idea. I've tried this at 100 yards, and I don't have the accuracy needed to get on target, but at close range it would probably work just fine. So kind of an interesting idea. A little bit more on this mount. This mount here, you see this section in the middle with these holes in it. That's actually a riser section. You can pull that bit out and put this clampy bit right on the top bit there and get a little bit lower. With this riser in here, it's made for AR-15's height optics. ARs have like a standard height for optics on them. But if you don't want that and you want a little bit lower, let's say you've got a rifle with a cheek piece that goes a little bit lower and it's not straight line recoil like the AR, you could pull these bolts off here and then pop this guy onto a lower setting with this riser out. Now, if you see this thing from the front, it's kind of a little bit red. It does have threads if you wanted to put on a kill flash or something like that on the front. Again, I shoot 3 guns, so this is not something that's useful to me, but it's interesting for some people out there. You can run a magnifier on this thing. Again, it's not something I would ever do in 3-gun, because I would, if I wanted an optic, I would run a scope like a 1:4 or a 1:6 rather than a red dot with a magnifier. So some of you might be wondering, is this the right red dot for me? And how do I know if it's the right one for me? Well, I moved from 3-gun tac ops to limited last year. I wanted a red dot that was bulletproof. I didn't really want something that didn't have a very good name, or I would need to use the warranty. There's a couple of different optics out there that I've seen some fail, or I've seen people come up to do their stage, pull their rifle up and be like, oh, it's not on, and have to fiddle with buttons and that kind of thing. And this is just a lot faster of a device to use, this turning guy. And you shouldn't have to use it, because it should just be on all the time, because it can be on all the time, right? So it's a very different philosophy of use compared to pressing buttons to start up a red dot, or relying on some magic like wave it around and it's going to turn on again for you, right? So I like that. I like the simplicity of it. Reliability has been 100%, so I mean, there's not really much more I can do to test that. I'm not going to beat up my nice optic that I got for 3-gun kind of a thing. Where does this optic sit in the market? Because like red dots have changed quite a bit. This design has been around for a long time. Is it still competitive? Well, yes and no. Yes, in that the durability and reliability of Aimpoints is excellent. Yes, in the lifetime that you get out of a battery on this thing is also excellent, and you don't have to mess around with anything fancy. No, in that the price is pretty high for what you're getting. These things are, again, new in Canada here. I'm seeing prices of $650, $675 for what is a pretty old design. But also a pretty good brand name, and also all those other things I mentioned there. So for 3-gun, when your budget is a little bit higher, you may want to look at something like this, based on the simplicity and based on the durability. And you know, for people out there who doing different kinds of shooting, those things might be attractive to you as well. For the absolute lowest price point shoppers out there, I can't say I would recommend this. They're a very expensive red dot for what you get. Like, I got this one used for right around, I think it was 400 or somewhere around there. Which this is a lot of red dot to get for that. But there are some new market entrants that are coming out with, you know, $300 red dots that are also pretty good, or might have lifetime warranties. So if something goes wrong, you can always send it in, kind of a thing. I didn't really want to have to send my stuff in, which is why I got something that has been, you know, known to be a little bit more bomb proof. It's been used by cops and military and that kind of thing. So it's a little bit more of a for sure reliable kind of a red dot. So if you're in the market for a red dot and you want something that's good, like professional but not professional pricing, maybe look at the the ironically named Aimpoint PRO. Thanks for watching.